Hello, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Rixie, one of the creators here at the Collector's Maze Network. My guest today is a writer, director, award-winning cinematographer, and one of the talented creators behind the popular Avalon Universe Star Trek fan films. Everyone, Joshua Irwin. Josh,
thanks for having me today.
Josh, man, welcome to the maze, dude. Thanks for stopping in and talking with us today. Now, I left out one piece on your list of credits there, or what you do, but you've actually you've performed or you've acted in some of the films as well, right?
Yeah, in a very limited way. I play a very minor character, and I've just done that because it helps me as a director to understand the perspective of the actors better. And so it's just something that I dabble in, not really serious about, but again, it's just something that helps me to be a better director and relate to the actors better when they're the ones on camera.
Absolutely. I love that you do that. I mean, because I imagine, as an actor, it helps a lot, getting the right direction, and you having that experience allows you to have that perspective. So, where I want to jump into your Star Trek love story, your Trek love story. Where and when and why did you fall in love with Star Trek?
My father was always a big Star Trek fan. He watched the original series when it came on in the 1960s. He was in college. And for me, it was the animated series was the first thing that I saw. And I got hooked on that when I was 5 years old. And then in 1987, I watched Encounter at Farpoint the first time that it ever aired. And I just couldn't stop watching ever since. And so it's really it was Next Generation that hooked me. But my dad, being the TOS fan that he was, original series would come on the same station every weeknight at midnight. And so he would stay up until midnight and he would record the original show for me to watch on VHS the next day. And so he made sure that I had an appreciation for TOS as well.
What a great dad.
It's just sort of never stopped since then. Yeah.
What a great dad. I mean, I love that. I love that. I had just started, I had seen some of the animated series when I was younger, and I just started watching it again. And it was the show on, I think it's on Amazon Prime, The Center Seat, 55 Years of Star Trek. I'm assuming you've seen it. So I didn't realize that that it was all the original actors voicing the characters. So really, it was an extension of the original show. It was just animated, and I'm assuming the reason they did that was budget constraints and whatnot. I mean, I think it's a little, at least limited animation like that is a little less expensive to make than I'm assuming the original series. But I love that show. I love that show.
Yeah, and the neat thing about that is that you had both Nichelle Nichols and Majel Barrett Roddenberry. They voiced all the female characters.
I did not realize that.
Any other character, a lot of the times that was a male character, would be just James Doohan doing a different voice for somebody. So they were pretty limited in who came back. Not everybody came back. Like I think Walter Koenig wasn't in it, but they were very creative in how they got all the different voices for the show, which is something I didn't realize when I was 5, but watching it again as an adult made me kind of appreciate the creativeness of it.
Yes, exactly. And I'm watching it through a new lens now, and with that information and understanding why they chose animation at that point in time. So I'm excited to watch through it again. So I want to introduce Avalon to our listeners. I mean, who or what is Avalon? I mean, give me your elevator speech, and then I want to hear kind of the history. So when someone asks you who Avalon is in the elevator, what do you tell them? And then what's that in depth? How did it begin and how did it grow?
Well, Avalon Universe is a compilation of Star Trek fan films that we started making in 2018. It came about because two friends of mine and myself wanted to find a film project that we could use to become better at the craft of filmmaking. They were actors and they wanted to practice the craft of acting. I wanted to practice the craft of filmmaking, and it presented a unique opportunity. The Avalon universe, from a creative standpoint, is sort of an alternate quantum universe that is separate and distinct from, say, the Prime universe or the Mirror universe or the Kelvin universe. We've seen all of these in Star Trek, and we decided to do like an alternate universe thing before it was cool, before everybody was doing it. And so we decided to set our films in this alternate continuity so that we would have the creative freedom to do things a little differently, to take creative freedom with costumes, with sets, with lighting, with plots, with characters, all kinds of stuff. And so it's centered around the adventures of the USS Excalibur in that universe after it was sort of salvaged following the events of the Ultimate Computer and the M5 computer battle. And it follows, the characters that salvaged it and how their journey progresses. And so it's a fun thing to do. It really is just genuinely a Star Trek fan production. It's done for the love of Star Trek and no other reason. I'm a big Star Trek fan. My friend Tyler Donovan, who plays Captain Derek Mason, he's a huge Star Trek fan. He and I met in a Star Trek fan club when we were 11 years old in 5th grade. And we've been friends ever since. And we talked about doing this sort of thing back then, and so to actually be doing it together now is amazing, and it's just something we're doing because we love it, and it has this side benefit of giving us the opportunity to practice the craft of filmmaking and get a little better at it each time.
I love that. I love that two friends, came together. So you guys have been friends, you said, since 11? Holy cow!
Yeah,
and then
5th grade.
Wow, and then made that childhood dream, basically come true, and
yeah,
you're providing joy to a lot of people out there. I mean, the views you're getting on the films and the comments. I went through and read through the comments, and I love some of the comments. One of the things, and I was going to ask it later, but I mean, you are providing that classic Trek experience that I think a lot of people are missing. I mean, I don't know that any of the newer shows are capturing that. I love the newer shows, and I'm enjoying the newer shows, but I think that that classic Trek and even the classic TNG, I think there's some of that. I felt some of that in season 3 of Picard, some classic TNG, but I love that you guys are doing that. So thank you.
That's something that we hear a lot in fan films is that, sometimes when people are looking for something that's new and fresh, but has a classic feel to it, that they turn to fan films. And that's really nice. We appreciate that a lot. I always try to point out, hey, look at it this way. Paramount and CBS have been, have shown a lot of grace in allowing us to make these films. And so in a way, you still have the CBS and Paramount to thank for giving you something you want, because they've been so cool in letting us celebrate our fandom in this way. They don't have to, but they do it. And it's something we greatly appreciate. As far as the view count, that was something we didn't see coming, honestly. Going back to, the childhood dream, doing a Star Trek fan film was something that I wanted to do back then, but I didn't know how. And then when I, got the indie film bug and became an indie filmmaker, it was something that I didn't think that I would do well. And if I wasn't going to do it well, I didn't want to try and do it. And one day I was, I followed Star Trek fan films from the beginning, from Star Trek New Voyages through everything that came after, Hidden Frontier, all that kind of stuff. Even saw Axanar, Star Trek Continues, what have you. And I started to follow a group on Facebook called Project Small Access, was what it's called in the beginning. And it was advocating for fan films. And then it morphed into this thing called Fan Film Forum. And I saw this guy posting on there every day, guy named Vance Major. And this guy was amazing because, I'm just going to be honest about it. He's a big guy. He's a rather big dude. He's a large man. And, I'm watching his films. He's posting them on this forum. Dude's going out in the backyard, with his friends and shooting Star Trek fan films on his phone. And I looked at this and I thought, this guy is a more courageous filmmaker than I am. And so I started leaving, just like, congratulations, or that's great, man, I'm glad you're doing this. Before I knew it, he was sending me a friend request. Then we were talking. And then when my friends and I were looking for a film project, it was Vance that encouraged us to try making a Star Trek fan film. And we went for it. So I've always said that he was my inspiration. And he helped us facilitate that first shoot. He got us in touch with Ray Tessie at Neutral Zone Studios to book the shoot, all that kind of stuff. And I thought we would make this first film and we'd get like 6,000 views or something, and we'd look back on it and go, hey, remember that time we made that Star Trek fan film? That was fun. I didn't expect that first film to get 500,000 views. I just didn't expect that. And then suddenly we've got thousands of subscribers, and we were having so much fun doing it. I mean, that experience of making that first fan film was so fun and so like healing in a way for a filmmaker, because filmmaking is hard, that I think I've been chasing that particular feeling that I got making that first fan film. I think I've been chasing it for almost 5 years now, or almost 6 years now, actually.
Wow, I love that story. I love Vance coming in and encouraging you. I think I have seen some of his stuff out there on YouTube. I think I have come across that. I think I know exactly who you're talking about. But so really, what he was saying is if you wait until you're all ready to have the budget, it's not going to happen. You just got to get out there and start, right? So I guess the word of advice you would give to someone looking to get in to start making fan films, I mean, what's the biggest thing you would tell them? I mean, is that it? I mean, don't wait, get out there and just start doing it.
Absolutely. That's the best advice for any filmmaker. When I was 19, I met Bruce Campbell, and I'm sure you know who Bruce Campbell is. And I had the chance to ask him a question, and I said, he says, you got one question, go ahead and ask it. And I said, how do I become a filmmaker? What's the best way to do it? And he said, don't worry about film school and all that kind of stuff. Just get some gear and your friends and go out and make movies and just mess it up. Just make mistakes, just gain experience. That's the best thing you can do. Making a film is just gain experience. Now today you can get on YouTube and you can watch all kinds of great videos and that give advice on filmmaking and how to do it, everything from lighting to audio to cameras. But really, experience is the biggest thing. Just go out and figure out how to do it. A lot of times you'll see a situation where people start out and they do okay, or it's kind of rough the first time they make a film, and they keep going and they keep going and they keep going, and then they become great filmmakers. I think that's representative of like the guys from Dreadnought Dominion, Randy Wren and Gary Davis. Before they made Dreadnought Dominion, they'd never made a film at all before, let alone a fan film, and they just took some camera gear and started experimenting, and they became great filmmakers. The same is true of Vance. In the beginning, it was like, you're seeing Little Caesars Pizza in the background and people are driving by in their cars, and, but in the time since then, he's not only become a great filmmaker, he's become an amazing actor.
Excellent. I love that story. And I love that advice. So you touched on the Neutral Zone Studios. Sets and costumes. I mean, stunning sets and costumes in the film. I think, Neutral Zone Studios, I'm familiar with them, but Shearer, what you're doing some of your own sets, and then there's other sets you're traveling to. Tell us a little about that.
Well, we have two places we primarily shoot at. One is Warp 66 Studios here in Arkansas, and that's Warp stands for Wolf and Reynolds Productions. Those are my friends Dan Reynolds and Glenn Wolf, and they have sets that are sort of on their own private property, and the great thing about those sets is there's a lot of flexibility if we want to redress them, or if we want to light them differently, or if we want to create our own animations. And so that's usually where you see the Avalon universe type stuff the most, is because we can redress those sets with a lot more flexibility. But, their space is a little smaller. They've made the most of it, but their space is a little smaller. Neutral Zone Studios is in Kingsland, Georgia right now. They are planning to relocate into Central Florida. Those sets were built about 12 years ago or so, originally for Starship Farragut, which is a 20-year legacy fan film series. They entered into an agreement with another fan film series. I think a lot of people are familiar with Star Trek Continues, and Star Trek Continues was shot there. And when Star Trek Continues ended its run in 2017, Vic Mignogna, who owned the set, sold them to a guy named Ray Tessie. And so Ray Tessie is the person who has taken up the mantle of stewardship for the sets in the studio and has kept it going for the last 6 years. And he's a super nice guy who he's put a considerable amount of money into keeping it going. I don't know how he does it, not just from a money standpoint, from a sanity standpoint. It's a lot of responsibility, and he's made it last a lot longer than a lot of people thought it would. And so that's kind of a testament to him and his ingenuity. And now they're going to move it to a new building in Central Florida, and can't wait to see what the next chapter is for them.
That's exciting. And for those who don't know, that set, that's a complete, so the Neutral Zone Studios has a complete bridge set, engineering, transporter room, med bay, and then a hallway.
It's very close to the actual layout of Desilu Studios in 1967 or so, what you would have found in like the second and third season. Now, there are a couple of sets they don't have. They don't have like the med lab and things like that, but they have auxiliary control, they have engineering, they have the full 100-foot corridor, captain's quarters, transporter room, briefing room, Jeffries tube, and the bridge it's not quite 360. It's like there's just one little slot, kind of right off from the view screen where you can enter and exit. But it's pretty darn near 360, and it's the only one I've seen with just sort of a really faithful replica of the view screen, where you have kind of the outer blue neon around the view screen, and then they've got like a 100-inch TV in the middle of it. And so the fun thing we've done there is we'll have a little fan film movie night on the bridge.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so you'll sit there, and it's the coolest thing ever. You'll sit on the bridge, with the lights out, but the little consoles and blinkies are going, but you're watching, your fan film on the actual view screen of the bridge. And so that's pretty surreal. Fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty surreal. So Neutral Zone Studios, Warp 66, which is your local there, and Neutral Zone Studios, I think they have a Facebook page, and so so those people want to get out and support them, because that's a great thing they're doing.
Absolutely,
because anyone can rent out and shoot a fan film there. Is that correct?
At Neutral Zone, yes. Warp 66 is people
exclusively
can shoot
Avalon.
There. No. There are a lot of fan films that do shoot there. It's more of kind of a friendly basis sort of a thing where, we've done it. Other fan films have done it. They primarily produce their own anthology series called the Federation Files. And so that's something, for people to look up, or an interview for you to do. It's a great anthology series called the Federation Files. And then Neutral Zone Studios, they have an anthology series there called Tales from the Neutral Zone. And I produce and direct a lot of those with in conjunction with them as a partnership. And that's kind of my slick deal to get free studio time, I guess, is I trade my services on their films for the opportunity to shoot mine. So
that's excellent. I love the community and how everyone works together within the community. I love that. So, producing, directing, you also, I mean, you write a lot of the stories for Avalon. I'm curious, where do you say is your greatest source of inspiration for your stories? I mean, where are you pulling those from?
Right. Well, with Avalon in particular, my creative vision is sort of that there's something from every version of Star Trek that influences it in some way. So like there's an influence from the totality, so to speak. Like you're going to see TOS sets, but you're going to see, like Star Trek Beyond tunics with, it used to be Discovery pins, but then we made our own that are kind of a takeoff of merging Discovery with Star Trek the Motion Picture to make almost a Next Generation looking badge. And then that's on, like a Beyond tunic, which has like a TOS coloring, but more of a TNG type shape to it. And so there are all these different sources that are all just kind of creating one unique look and feel to the whole thing. Again, it's TOS style sets, but like the lighting and cinematography tries to be a little closer to like Strange New Worlds and that sort of thing. So using modern lighting and camera techniques. So there's kind of there's animated L cars. There's an influence from lots of different places.
So do you will you come across an idea in life and it's like, oh, that would make a great, bit or a scene in the film, or are you drawing from, different, I think one of them adds on to the Kobayashi Maru scenario. What is that? That was which movie? That was your latest one, The Death of War, right? That was the latest film.
Yeah, they do sort of reference the Kobayashi Maru in that, and then they realize they're living it. That of course is a Tales from the Neutral Zone, and with that one, Ray was calling it Tales from the Neutral Zone, and I thought, you're calling your series Tales from the Neutral Zone, but we haven't really seen a whole lot from the Neutral Zone. You need some kind of conflict with the Romulans going on, and so I just sort of came up with this idea to have, what if they were? My thought was, what if they were responding to a distress call from a Romulan outpost, and when they got there, they rescued all these Romulans, but then the Romulans thought they were the ones that destroyed the outpost, and it's like, oh, now you're in a pickle, and you gotta figure out how to solve that one. So that was a fun one to do. My favorite thing is Easter eggs, in little call outs, just for the heck of it. I think my favorite one of those was, two of my favorite ones in Agent of New Worlds. We had an Easter egg of an Easter egg. So we had the Ferengi like thought maker device at the end, but it was like envisioning what the Ferengi thought maker device would look like in the Avalon universe in the 23rd century. And it looked more like an Easter egg. It had an egg shape. And so they're like, oh, it looks like a giant Easter egg, but it was an Easter egg of an Easter egg. And then, we had the confused guy in a mini skirt in Crisis on Infinite Excaliburs. And that was probably one of my favorite call outs there.
I'm going to have to check. I've not seen that one yet. There's so many to watch. I mean, all right, so you mentioned Agent of New Worlds. So that was like this unsanctioned rescue, search and rescue mission that kind of goes off the rails. So yeah. I noticed in that, I mean, quite a few different locations, right? I mean, you had some, inset studio. I mean, how many different locations did you have on that film?
Wow, that film kind of holds, I don't know if it actually holds a record for the most miles traveled to do a fan film, but if it doesn't, it's close, because there were portions of it shot in Georgia. There were portions of it shot in, Phoenix, Arizona, outside of Phoenix, Arizona at a national park. There were scenes shot in Oklahoma, like in a state park in Oklahoma, and then there was a nature preserve in really southern Oklahoma, almost Texas, kind of down by Fort Sill, and we had to find this cave, and we had to hike all day to find this cave for like 3 shots of it. And then the interior of the cave was a set built at Warp 66. So it was all over, shots from all over the country. Now the stuff from Georgia was like, 2 or 3 shots where we used shots of the elements of the neutral zone sets, but we didn't have actual set scenes take place there. We just used some shots from there, but most of the ship stuff was primarily shot in Arkansas at Warp 66. The cave, the interior of the cave was at Warp 66, and it was a specially made set just for the cave. And so, yeah, that one was quite an adventure. That took us most of 2021 to shoot that and put it together. And we finally released the version we liked of it like the day after Christmas. So that was most of the year we were shooting that film. I wrote it in something like February or March of 2021, and we put it out by December.
Nice. Well, watching through it, I'm like, okay, so you have the shuttle, right? Then you have, okay, so here's they're outside, and then it looks like she's traversed a long ways. Then the ground looks a little different. Okay, they went somewhere different, and then you had the plateau. I'm assuming that was at the national park. Now, did you just get an aerial shot there of that?
Yeah, that was a drone.
A drone, yeah.
That was me flying a drone around her. And the funny part is, yeah, she did traverse a long distance because she starts walking in Arizona and she ends up on the plateau in Oklahoma.
She put some miles on those boots.
So she put some miles, and the boots melted. I think it was different. Yeah, I think it was different. It might have been different boots in Oklahoma, because in Arizona the boots melted because it was June when we shot in Arizona. It was like 110 degrees, and I think her boots melted.
No. Well, so this highlights, I think, perfectly my next question. I mean, and maybe I'll have you explain a little bit about continuity and what that means in a film, because it's not like, I'm assuming most, and you're not, and most films are not shot in sequential order, right? I mean, like in scene 1, 2, 3, all the way to the end. So you're shooting all over the place, and so how did you keep the continuity through that? I mean, how were you keeping tabs? Like you said, the boots melted. Well,
in some cases better than others, because like for example, when they get beamed up and they're on the cave, they're in the cave set, they're like they're on one side of the screen, and then when they beam up, the characters have switched, and we got that wrong, so they were on the wrong sides. And people were like, wait, they were on the other side when they beamed up than when they got on the ship. And I was like, oh, the ship was facing the opposite direction.
The ship turned.
The ship was, you're seeing it from the opposite direction. Don't worry. No, I'm just making that up. It was like, as far as the order, with that film, the deal there was, we shot that particular film 3 times, or portions of it 3 times, because we went through 2 actresses. So we had the same actress playing Commander Allenby throughout the whole film, but we had a completely different character. We didn't have Aoka in the original version. We had a completely different character played by a different actress, and that did not work out. It was kind of like, Star Trek Voyager, where they shot with an actress for Captain Janeway, and that just kind of didn't work out. And so, that we parted ways with that actress, and we'd shot all this material in Arizona, and the only stuff that was usable was the stuff of Allenby by herself at the beginning. We didn't want to reshoot that. So we had to kind of redo everything else. So Oklahoma was an easier trip than Arizona. So we reshot with one actress, and that actress got hired for like a huge modeling gig in Los Angeles and just ditched us, just just headed out. And so the actress that we ended up with, Jennifer Rader, who plays Aoka, was the third actress to play the role. And luckily for us, she was rock solid.
Yeah, she did a great job.
She was so committed, and she even came in with her own idea of how to do the tattoo, because we were just we wanted to say that she was the same tribe as Chakotay, and so we were doing the same tattoo, and she's like, no, what if we did this like phoenix tattoo with the Chippewa bird or something? And yeah, let's try that. And so she got her own unique tattoo. I love the way that Jennifer played the character, and she ended up playing it for the rest of the run, and that worked out. And then after that film, we had to go with a different actress for Allenby, just because that actor didn't work out. So, in a Star Trek, a real Star Trek show, you sign people to contracts, you pay them a lot of money. When you're making Star Trek fan films, it's really not the same thing. You just can't get people to commit the way that you would in a Hollywood production. And so you see this in fan films sometimes, where you have maybe a couple of different actresses play a part. We lucked out in that we found Alexandra Rexford to play Commander Allenby for the rest of the run, and she did an amazing job. She was the literal personification of the character that I wanted her to be. She brought a maturity to it. She brought a commitment to it, and really things worked out for the best, I think.
Yeah, they both did an excellent job. It's a great film, and well directed and well filmed. I enjoyed it.
Thanks.
So I want to jump over to Ghost Ship for a minute, which is another.
Oh wow, okay. So
Ghost Ship. So is that Avalon? Am I in the? So
yep.
Is that Avalon as well? Okay. So this in Ghost Ship, a small crew is sent to recover a derelict starship, and I forget the name of the starship. What starship was it?
It's the USS Excalibur.
It is the Excalibur. Okay, so this is where the Excalibur.
This is the beginning. Ghost Ship was the very first film.
Okay,
yeah.
So a small crew is set to recover the Excalibur, and then the crew aboard had suffered a fatal catastrophe. So the crew had all demised, and so you won the best dramatic presentation at Treklanta 2019 for the film. So congratulations, by the way, on that.
Thank you.
And again, what I love that you are providing that classic TOS, look and feel and story. I mean, and you may have touched on it earlier, but how important is that to you to keep that alive, and why?
Well, ultimately, the lighthearted and fun, somewhat whimsical, but really optimistic feel of Star Trek is at the core of Star Trek's identity, I think. Gene Roddenberry created Star Trek to be an optimistic vision of the future. And so maintaining that and sometimes finding the balance with, really dramatic storytelling can be difficult, but it is very important to keep that feel. Just because that's what you're familiar with. That's what you're homaging. That's the world you want to live in, is the world that you fell in love with. A big part of why people make Star Trek fan films is they want their own piece of the Star Trek universe. They want to imagine that they're there. You see a lot of people go to conventions, they do cosplay, or they join fan clubs like Starfleet International, or there are all kinds of different ways that people put on a uniform and try to imagine that they're there in that world that they've fallen in love with. And it's, I think a Star Trek fan film is one of the best ways to just, take a little trip out there, an imaginary trip to that place that you love. And so certainly keeping that classic feel to it is an important element of that. Ghost Ship, again, that was the first one. And it was not only about homaging Star Trek, but it was about my own crazy creative vision for something. I wanted to have something that was lighthearted, that didn't take itself too seriously, that there was some funny dialogue, that there was that it was humorous. And
I love the puns. I love the puns.
We had 3 actors who were close friends, and it was about kind of having the 3 musketeers, going out and having this sort of um, bizarre off the rails adventure and running into, I had always had this thing where just as a regular indie filmmaker, I pledged that I would never make a zombie movie because there's too many zombie movies out there. Everybody's doing it. And I have a friend who runs a film distribution company, and he even said, quit making zombie movies. There are too many zombie movies. We won't take them. And so I was just like, yeah, I don't think I'm ever going to make a zombie movie. But then here we are going into Star Trek fan films. And the idea came about because Vance and I were kind of bouncing things around on the phone, and he was like, well, what if it was a situation where the ship was without power? You're on a ship that has no power, and it's eerie and all of this. And I was like, okay, it's the USS Excalibur because that was a ship that was disabled in a episode, so that's something you could revisit. And they send this small group of people out to salvage it because that absolutely makes no sense whatsoever. Why would they do that? But, the stupid things that happen in horror movies, so it's like these three people go out alone and they have to fight the zombie, the crew members, the dead crew members become zombies and they have to fight them. And it was literally like that fast. It was like 10 seconds that I came up with the idea while talking to Vance. And I was like, this is what we're doing. And went and wrote it. And we were shooting it like something like 6 weeks after I had the first idea for it. And then it was on the internet 6 weeks later, which was, like a 3 month or whatever turnaround.
Holy
from
marathon.
Idea, yeah. From an idea to having a completed fan film. Winning Best Dramatic Presentation at the Bijou Awards in Treklanta was a surprise. It wasn't something I thought was going to happen, and when it did, it was almost shocking. I thought it was all right, but I don't know that it was Fan Film of the Year, and I guess other people thought it was. So that was nice.
It was a great fun film. Very entertaining to watch. And the biggest question I got in my mind was like, how much hazard pay did you have to give Victoria for the zombie slobber scene?
Well, not much because
she's
that
like, bring it on.
It was her idea.
Okay.
She was like, oh, what if he was slobbering all over me? And I'm like, oh, you were always such a sloppy kisser. And the guy who was doing that to her he's a rather handsome gentleman. And so I don't think it bothered her all that much. And if it did, she got her payback because I got to be one of the zombies that she hit and kicked and hit with like a little pipe or whatever, because it was like, I wanted her to be able to go full steam. I didn't want her to pull back, on film. I wanted her to, and I was just like, hit me, kick me, whatever. You're not going to hurt me. And so she's actually kicking me. She's actually hitting me. She put like a gash on the top of my head when she hit me with like the silly, pipes that we came up with that looked ridiculous. But that was the point. It was supposed to be just totally stupid. So, but it was a lot of fun.
What was the zombie slobber made from? I mean, it was a dark green. Do you remember?
It was just chocolate syrup.
Chocolate syrup. Okay, so
yeah.
Okay, chocolate syrup. So it wasn't that bad at all.
That's all it was. No, it was just like Psycho. I think that's where we got the idea.
I was watching. I was like, oh my gosh, he's drooling all over it, and then he just doesn't stop. But yeah, okay. Yeah. I was like, okay. That has got to be wild. Okay, all right. So, there in a lot of the films. I mean, there's a ton of important shots that you have to get to tell the story. I mean, how do you figure out what shots and scenes you need to effectively tell the story? I mean, what's your process?
Yeah, there's a lot that you take into it. Like what the action is, what the shot is telling you. You know what I mean? Like the shot should tell you something. And even the way that you frame a shot, where a character is framed in the shot, whether you're looking down on them, looking up at them, what direction they're moving, all of those, sort of communicate subtle things. Like a lot of times you might put a villain on the left and a hero on the right. Or oddly enough, Star Trek sort of breaks that convention because you see a lot of, like Captain Kirk framed screen left. And or you may try to link an interior shot to an exterior shot. So it's like, you frame a movement on the inside of the ship and you try to maybe connect that to a movement on the outside of the ship. Or one thing that I've done a lot of is, let's say that there are two captains on two different ships and they're talking to each other. And so you may not just see the view screen, you may go bounce back between both bridges. Well, I may frame one captain's screen left and the other captain's screen right, like I would if there were just two people talking, having a normal conversation in the corridor or something. And so you try to keep the 180 rule when you can. There's definite conventions as to, like, okay, it's an establishing shot. How do you establish? What do you convey? It's an ending shot. Or it may just be close-ups of two people talking. A lot of times, you get people that'll come in and comment and say, oh, you should move the camera more or something. To me, I think camera movement has to have a reason. There needs to be a purpose to the camera movement. And there's a little bit of, to a degree, you can make it just for the sake of production value, but you don't have to just necessarily move the camera for the sake of moving the camera. If you're following a character or you're revealing something or you're establishing something, you may move the camera for that reason. And then if it's just two people talking, sometimes you might just settle on some tight shots. It's a difficult balance in that regard because you don't want to be too static to the point that people are falling asleep, but then you don't want to be like, Discovery, where they're like orbiting people talking, the camera's just going around and around and around, and you're like about to throw up or something, so there's a delicate balance. It's really about, what are you trying to tell with the shot? What is the purpose of the shot? What is the action in the shot? And how does it connect with the shot before it and the shot after it? And so those are sort of all of the things that you have to take into consideration. It's like putting together a jigsaw puzzle. You're telling a story with the shots, and so you have to figure out how each individual piece fits. And so a lot of times I'll simply think about the purpose of the shot, and so I'll envision that in my head and then see how it connects to the next thing. And then the other thing, too, is there might be some sort of Star Trek inspiration that is drawn in the shot. Like maybe if a character sitting in the captain's chair were in some way recreating a classic, Captain Kirk shot, or maybe we do that with the lighting or something like that. So you might take a look at some classic things that they did in classic Star Trek and do something similar, something that's influenced, that's an homage. So those are sort of the factors that go into it. There's no like set way to do it. You try to vary it up. You try to improve it every single film, but in broad strokes, that's kind of what goes into it.
Nice, great. So, how many films Avalon are you up to? I mean, when you got, I think on the site there was like there's like 100 videos, but some of those are shorts and whatnot.
A lot of them are shorts, yeah. I think actual Avalon Universe fan films, it's somewhere in the area of maybe 15 of those, which in 5.5 years, 15 films is a lot. Yeah, it's it's been 5.5, almost 6 years and 15 released films that are Avalon, and then several that are Tales from the Neutral Zone. I want to say at least 4 of those. And then we have one film called Interlude, which takes place in the Axanar continuity. Even though it wasn't like produced by Axanar, it's something that we did with a friend of mine, Jonathan Lane. But it does take place in that continuity. And so that it has like an Axanar theme to it, but it's not an Avalon Universe film, and it never has been. It was Jonathan Lane runs a website called Fan Film Factor, and he runs the Fan Film Forum, Facebook page that I mentioned earlier. And so after Ghost Ship, he came to me and he said, would you help me make my fan film? And so I helped him make Interlude, and we released that, I think 3 years ago. And it's one of the more popular ones. It's like the number 5 slot in the all-time viewed films on our channel. It's like 150,000 views. So we've just been grateful for the success and for the support that everyone has given us over the years. It's made it so much easier, because filmmaking is a hard thing to do. It really weighs on you. It's stressful. There's way too much behind the scenes drama. You name the challenge and it's there. You don't have enough money. You don't have enough resources. You don't have enough time. And I've always said that filmmaking is like 70% problem solving. Because that's really, what it is. You embark on, okay, we got this great script and it calls for these locations and these characters and these costumes and these things. How are we going to do that? How do we find a coffee shop? How do we find a desert? How do we find a mine? How do we find a cave?
That was
you have to figure that all out.
That was ambitious. I mean, that film, all those locations, like wow. I was in awe. So what?
Thank you.
What's the big, hairy, audacious goal for Avalon? I mean, where would you like to see it go?
Well, I'd always planned it with an end in mind, because I didn't think it was, something you could just sustain for very long. And that's turned out in many ways to be the case. Like, for example, Victoria Archer, who's one of our actors that's been with us from the beginning. When we started out with her, she was 18, 19 years old, just starting out as a young adult, living the adventure. And now she's a mom and a business owner and a wife and all these kinds of things. And she's got stuff going on. And so, even for somebody like that, it was a challenge for her to finish off the project. And so we had to come up with some inventive ways for her character to be able to stay with us through the end. And she was gracious enough to really go above and beyond and finish her character arc and worked with us. And I'm so grateful for that. But it was always just a thing where, one, I didn't expect it to go for 5.5, 6 years. I thought we would be done with it like 2 years ago and moving on to something else. But there have been all kinds of complications, from COVID to, things don't work out with people that you're working with, and you decide to move on and take a different creative vision. And we've had to do a bit of a reset. Even in the middle of it, we kind of had to hit the reset button in some aspects and go, we're going to create a new identity for it, because it just what we were doing wasn't working. And so you face all kinds of challenges. I had a really nice, well-paying job prior to COVID, and I lost that job to the pandemic. It just went away. And then, so I had 2 years there, kind of through the middle of it, 21 and early 22, where I was like, broke. How am I going to do this? And then things turned around. And so it's like, it's taken longer than I've wanted it to. And for example, when I was talking about Victoria Archer, the solution we came up with was, why don't we just shoot all of your scenes? Why don't we just bring you in for a couple of weekends and just shoot everything you have left, and then you're done? And I thought, why don't we do that with all of Avalon Universe? Why don't we just shoot it out instead of going one film at a time? Let's just shoot it all and be done with it. And that's what we did. We did that last year. And so it's all shot. It's all there, other than a couple of pickup things. But and so I'm starting to edit what's going to be the final Avalon film. And so it'll what my end goal for it is this. Myself and the people involved look at it and go, we created something we're proud of. We're creatively fulfilled by it, and we're ready for a different challenge. That's really the end game that I've always wanted for it.
Love that. Love that. So you've gotten where you want to go, or you're almost where you want to go. So you're looking to the next big thing.
Sure, it's never been about popularity or anything big like that. For me, it's always been about creating art. It's always been about the experience of making something with people that I love, people that I care about, and enjoying doing it. And when it became not enjoyable, when it stopped being the source of healing and became the source of pain, that's when I knew that things had to change about it. And they did, and it became the source of the fun and the happiness and the healing after that. And so for me, it's always been about the experience of filmmaking. It's always been about the experience of creating art, and it's always been about spending time with people who are my friends, living our love of Star Trek. And so for me, if 2,500 people were watching each film, but we were creatively fulfilled with what we created on the other side of it, that would be great. Because oddly enough, Star Trek fan films, even though people appreciate it, it's something you do for yourself more than anything else. It's kind of a selfish thing in that regard. But we're very lucky that we've created something that people, a small amount of people like. So that's good.
Great films, and a good amount of people like. I mean, you definitely have a good following on the website, on the YouTube channel. So that's Avalon Fan Films on the YouTube channel. That's. Do you have a special Facebook page for the Avalon film, or is it just a YouTube channel?
Yeah, there's a Facebook page that's just simply Avalon Universe, a Star Trek fan production. And yes, a fair amount of people have watched it, liked it, subscribed. We have 22,000 subscribers at the moment. I think that you kind of have to keep some perspective on something like that, because, people will post like puppy dog licks baby's face and get, 31 million views.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
It's real. But then again, at the same time, you'll have there's something like a number like 75% of all videos posted on YouTube never even make it to 1,000 views. So to have 2.5 million, which is where we're at right now for the channel as a whole, yeah, that's nice. It's great that people like it.
Absolutely. You mentioned a lot of other fan film creators out there, and I encourage people, I mean, as you're listening to this, definitely make note and go out there and listen to all. I mean, and you do a good job of promoting other fan films as well on your Facebook page. I don't know if you have a complete list somewhere, but, so any you want to throw out and recommend, if...
Sure. Here's the thing about that. There's a meme that's gone around Facebook a little bit that says, that anyone who ever wanted to be a creator of art was told it's not going to work out. It's a pipe dream. Don't do this, all of the people who create art that you watch, whether it's a movie or a book you read or a painting or something like that. Those are all the people that didn't listen to all of the voices that told them not to waste their time creating art. And so every single person making a Star Trek fan film is a person that didn't listen to the voices that told them that it was a dumb idea, or, fought through the challenge of figuring out how they were going to make it or how they were going to pay for it. By the time the Star Trek fan film exists, no matter what it is, somebody has gone through an immense journey to create it. And so it's like, that is, in my view, always something to be celebrated, that somebody made it to that point. And that person is someone that I see, they're like me. They went through these challenges and they created something. And to me, that's very special. And I think that we're all in this together. And so instead of trying to have a pecking order or a rivalry or something like that, which happens in film, unfortunately. It's awful. Like in a lot of film circles, even small film circles, small indie film circles or whatever, it's very competitive. And I noticed that, one of the other things that I do in my life is mixed martial arts. And that's literally a thing where you're going in and hitting each other and choking and clubbing each other. That's somehow less competitive than filmmaking can be at times. And that just shocked me. And so to me, I thought, what if we took the opposite attitude with that? What if we put it out there, hey, we're all doing the same thing. We're all in this together. And before I came into it, and still in some ways, sadly, Star Trek fan films had a reputation for having a lot of drama and a lot of conflict. And I would go on so many sets and I would hear people say things like, imagine what we could all do if we worked together. And I kind of thought, why don't we? And so I made it kind of a crusade of mine to band together as many of the people who are doing it now as possible. And to the credit of so many of them, they all loved that. They were like, yeah, let's all somehow take the unique skills that we have and contribute to each other's projects. And then every project becomes better. I can go and I can take my camera and shoot a film for Randy Wren and Gary Davis on Dreadnought Dominion, and then they'll 3D print props for me. I can go out and assist Glenn Wolfe and Dan Reynolds with their film, and then they help me with sets and costumes. You would think, as far as like Warp 66 or Neutral Zone Studios, that should be a rivalry. It isn't. You saw instances, last year where scenes for the Federation Files were shot at Neutral Zone Studios, and costumes from Warp 66 Studios were used at Neutral Zone. That's amazing. That's the kind of thing that should continue to happen and is continuing to happen. We should, there shouldn't be a thing where I release a film and then somebody else release a film and we're like, I can't believe you did that. There was an accidental thing that happened like 4 years ago where I didn't know another guy was releasing a film. He released his film. I released mine on the same day. And I just reached out to him and I said, hey, we released films on the same day. Why don't I give yours a like and a share and you give mine a like and a share? And we did that. And it was like, that was the start of a friendship. And so it's like, it's an important attitude that I think filmmakers should have with each other. And so anytime I see somebody doing that, I'm going to celebrate it. As far as like a comprehensive list of projects to check out, there are two places that I recommend. There's a website called Star Trek Reviewed, and that is a comprehensive list of everything that's out there. Another place is called Fan Film Factor, that's my friend Jonathan Lane. And you can find articles about the filmmakers, interviews with them, what they did, how they made their films. But there's a lot of great stuff out there. There's, like I've said, Dreadnought Dominion, the Federation Files, Tales from the Neutral Zone. They're great. There's Trek Shorts, which is my friend Sam Cockings, who does a lot of animated green screen type work with digital sets. There's Lauralee in Germany. There's Udiron Infinity in Germany. There's These Are the Voyages in Australia. There is the Constar Chronicles, which is my friend Vance. There's Project Gemini. There's Potemkin Pictures, which has all kinds of different things that they do. They do like Starship Deimos, and they do a show about Klingons. They've got a Klingon one. So there's just a wealth of all of them out there. There's a new one out from, I think, Deception is what it's called. My friend Greg Locke made a film called Ambush that's really good. There's Starship Intrepid in Scotland. That's Nick Cook. I mean, it's hard to keep track of all of them, that there's so many, but that's the beauty of Star Trek fans making a kind of, in some ways, and when you come together, you can create sort of a beautiful, cohesive fan film universe where people, you'll see George Cayen from Antilles will do stuff with Constar. He'll do stuff with Nature's Hunger. And then you'll see Vance in Everything, or you'll see a cameo by the Dreadnought Dominion crew, or Nick Cooks, and you'll see him in Sam Cocking's films. And so we're all starting to just kind of realize that, hey, we're all in this together, so we're helping each other out. We're contributing to each other's projects. And I think it's a very beautiful thing that's sort of unheard of in filmmaking, and I'm really glad that everybody's buying into it, because it's really special.
Well, I mean, you've brought the whole premise of Star Trek to the filmmaking side of Star Trek, which is really what it is.
I'm trying. I wish I had been more successful with it than I have been. There's still conflict there, unfortunately. There's still people that can't get along. But you do the best that you can, and if you just can't make it work with somebody, then I think what you do is you just move on and live and let live. That's the only thing you can do.
Absolutely. Well, Josh, man, thank you so much for the time. And I just want to encourage everyone to get out there and watch some fan films. I mean, Josh, you listed a ton there. There's so much content out there.
Definitely.
I love the age that we live in right now. I know, technology, there's some dark sides to it, but I love it for the storytelling medium, because, now, I mean, everyone can get out and make a fan film, like you said. I mean, just, on an iPhone, whatever.
Anyone can.
Get out there
Anyone
and do
can.
it.
It's really sort of what I call the democratization of filmmaking, because everybody has a voice. If you may not be able to do the kind of visual effects that Hollywood can, but you can go back to the roots of just telling a story. And that's what filmmaking is about. It's just another form of storytelling.
Absolutely. Well, great, man. Well, thank you again. Have a wonderful day, and I can't wait to see the next Avalon film.
Thanks for having me on.